Good afternoon, everyone. Quickly introducing myself, I'm Sachin Arora. I'm a partner and head of digital Lighthouse, a cloud data and AI practice for KPMG in India. Pleasure to be here and hosting this fireside chat. And the digital age is well upon us. As we examine the exciting times that we're living in, we recognize that the era of data analytics is booming with many industries and organizations converting data into dollars and some grappling with the harness into its true power. So, and then as the shift in the industry has been, Gartner predicts, 75% of the organizations are moving to cloud when it comes to data, and they're building up large data lakes on the different cloud platforms. As they form this large data platforms on cloud, which is very different from the data warehouse world that we've been used to on the on-premises infrastructure, there are various data management, data security issues that comes about, and there's a lot of PII data that goes into cloud. How do you really securitize and manage it? And those concerns dawn upon us that is going cloud is risky for us or not, or how do you really manage the cloud using some of the AI tools and the latest innovation that is happening in the space to really have the understand what's going on in the ecosystem. We have Aman and Harsha join us in this fireside chat. So I'll start with Harsha. Harsha is the CIO for Seylan Bank. Harsha, we understand that a successful approach to modern data management requires leadership, data principles, quality assurance, governance, and architecture. Could you walk us through the importance of each of these parameters in an organization which is willing to embrace start of the art of possible when it comes to data management practices?
Correct. So that's a very good question, and that question is very near and dear to my heart also, because these are some of the stuff that we are looking at aggressively pushing on. So I think when you spoke about leadership when it comes to understanding data management, I think that is the key. End of the day, why are we using data? Why is data important? And is data something that you will get an ROI within a quarter or within 2 quarters or a year? Now, I think the leadership needs to understand this. And I think when it comes to data, there is no end state. It's a gradually evolving state where the real benefit and the real value will come only once you have used it for a while and the data team and the entire organization starts to see the benefit of it. So if somebody says, let me implement this and like a normal initiative and say, okay, at the end of the implementation, starting day one, let's look at the ROI. I mean, then people are sadly mistaken. ROI is something that will come over the years and every consecutive quarter, every consecutive year, I would believe, and I have seen it, the ROI grows exponentially. So the leadership understanding that I believe is critical. And so I think when one makes an investment, initially the investment may be big, but one also needs to understand that over the years go by, that investment may taper down or may remain static. But on the other hand, the ROI keeps growing exponentially. And I think unless the leadership understands this and has the patience, uh, I think it may not get its due attention. In terms of data principles, quality assurance, we all know the governance side, the data is as good as what you put into it. And as banks, some of our data may not be that good. So I think we have gone through multiple rounds of cleansing our original source of truth so that the data comes out clean and also the principles, how those are managed. That's also a journey, but we should have strict KPIs and whatever it is to manage those. In terms of quality assurance, same story. We need to ensure that the ETLs and even the data lake and even the sub views you're getting or the sub cubes you're getting on it, there's a stringent quality process just like one would have for software. And I think I won't, I'll be hard pressed to say if a single entity can actually do it themselves. That is where they would need to get external help. to jumpstart a particular area, jumpstart in the quality of data, jumpstart in getting a certain view. And then once they have that knowledge, then they will continue for a while, then get help in another area. So it's a continuous cycle of getting outside consultancy or maybe developing internal competency and growing in that area and continuously grooming. And finally, architecture. It's very critical because you have fast moving, slow moving data, the fact table, the dimension table, how these are architected in your data lake. Then how will you have multiple copies to get the Mendelian architecture? That is not something we can take lightly. And I don't think it can be covered in a 3 to 4 minutes. It's a huge topic by itself. So I think it's a conversation where not a single entity or not even a single consulting company can kind of do immediately. I believe it's a continuous discussion and engagement, to get the architecture right, and then gradually keep going in the architecture maturity and the layering and all of that. So I think in that sense, it's absolutely paramount uh, that the leadership or the organization sees value in data analytics, sees value in predictive, prescriptive analytics, and see the value of that, and then spend the required human resources and the capex resources to ensure that that journey is fully met. I think that is a key part. If I can tell one thing, it's not a thing that you can do like a normal project that goes live tomorrow and it's gone live, but it's a continuous journey. Patience and being aggressive on achieving your goals is important. And also the ROI, I would believe, is always keep going if these architecture, governance, quality, and those things are put in place properly.
I think very well, summed up by you, Harsha, and I completely agree with you that the ROI is very hard for these projects to sort of define, especially to the leadership, that if you implement this kind of data governance management structure, this is the net saving or this is a big opportunity. And then, and interestingly, I work with a lot of enterprise companies, and I also work with a lot of digital native companies and startups. And an interesting thing, pattern which I can share here is, when we talk to the startups, these guys have started creating large data platforms without really putting the foundation in. But now, once they have sizable data and sort of crucial infrastructure, they're getting to data management, data governance practices now, and they're realizing it a little later, but it's all coming together. So I completely agree with you that either you start this as a fundamental block and make it as a ground floor and build your second, third floor on top of it, which is like ROI becoming exponential over time, or you start building up little scrappy way, but very soon realize that it's not manageable, and you need to really have principles, quality, and structure around data because it's a garbage in, garbage out, as you rightly
Absolutely.
explained.
Absolutely. And I think as with anything, it's like an architecture, software architecture. You may not have all the functionality the day you go live, but one would have to envisage here's the end state or here's the desired state. And when you do that, you will architect your software to meet that requirement. Similarly, even your data needs to be architected, though the initial state may not be that from a data governance, from a quality perspective, and even how you have your table to meet that end state. So I think just like a software, data also has to be architected and managed.
That's right. Couldn't agree more. Getting with Amol. Amol is the head of pre-sales for Veeam Software for India and the SAARC region. Amol, let's say you have successfully deployed multi-cloud architecture within your organization, but the management of it comes with few challenges in the form of deploying application across target environments, data portability across environments, and so on and so forth. How do you really tackle these bottlenecks that might frequent your multi-cloud functions?
Yeah. Thanks, Sachin, for that question. Excellent question. So, I would say hybrid is, has been a buzzword, and more also, since last 2 years, since pandemic has hit us, right? And in my experience, if I, look at the large enterprises or even, I've worked a lot with banks, right? And I have seen that more or less everyone is talking to at least one or two, in my experience, two hyperscalers. I mean, whether it is AWS, Azure, or Google, or some other local provider, they are at least talking to two, cloud service providers. Now, what it means is that first of all, it doesn't mean that there is it means end of the private data center, right? It's not going to happen. So private data centers are going to run for the foreseeable future. Now, what's happening is this hyperscalers are getting integrated back with the private data centers. Now, one of the key initiatives which I have seen since last 3 odd years is around application rationalization. Now, when you talk about application rationalizations, what you will see with this hybrid thing, in play is that a lot of the new workloads or new services which enterprises will consider will eventually run in one of these hyperscaler environments, AWS, Google, or whatever, right? You choose from obvious business advantage perspective. Second is lot of services or applications which are running on premise in the private data center uh, will either get refactored, rehosted, or maybe rebuilt. Not all of them, wherever it makes sense, uh, to be like a cloud native application or a cloud native service because of the obvious business benefit. And a lot of applications will still continue to run in its present form, be it a virtual machine or be it is in a physical format. Now, obviously, because of all this, what is happening is production platform proliferation. Now, you will see instead of earlier one or two platforms, now you've got suddenly 3 to 4 platforms to cater to. I mean, it is no longer just the private data center along with some physical and virtual machines, but you have 3, 4 production platforms in play now. Now, of course, it brings in a lot of complexities from the operational perspective across all the layers, right, from application to the infrastructure, right? But specifically, if I speak about data protection as a technology, what you will need to cater to is data protection across all this. So you still need to back up the data across all this production platforms. That's still going to be a core strategy for you from the resiliency perspective. The second thing is around data fluidity or data mobility, portability, whatever you may want to call it. But like I said earlier, some of the workloads or applications will move to cloud. Now, you will need to make sure that all this happens seamlessly. Of course, I mean, nothing is seamless, but you will need to make sure that whatever framework or tool or solution you invest in has a capability to move your application and data to the cloud of your choice. I mean, from on-prem in whatever format it today resides to a format on a cloud of your choice. So it could be AWS, Azure, or Google, whatever you choose. So the data needs to move seamlessly. So data needs to be portable. The other use case is obviously going to be around if you find a cost advantage or a user advantage or third, capability advantage between clouds. So today you may choose to run it on AWS, but tomorrow for some reason you may want to shift to Google because of these 3 advantages I spoke of: capability, user, or cost, right? So that's another use case where the data needs to be portable even within these 2 clouds, right? So natively, there is no technology really to support all this, right? But today we have, technologies like at Veeam, we provide a technology to move all this data portably across the clouds. The other thing which is very important is around the application modernization space. Now, today all the critical applications are actually, like I said, being rebuilt or rehosted or refactored to become or basically to break into microservices, right? And the preferred platform obviously is Kubernetes, right? When you tend to run them. Now you have several Kubernetes distributions in play today, enterprise grade. So it could be EKS from Amazon, AKS from Azure, or GKE from Google, or on-prem you have platforms like OpenShift or Tanzu from VMware, right? Now, in fact, I know of banks who run multiple of these Kubernetes platforms. I know a bank who today runs a mobile banking application on Tanzu. They run some data warehousing application on Rancher, and they're developing applications on EKS as well, right? So that's going to bring in another level of complexity, because in this cloud native world there are going to be other challenges around how do I make sure that I protect the persistent data across these different applications or microservices, right? Because I mean, mind you, it's not the same like you used to do traditionally on a VM or on a physical machine or even on cloud EC2 instance. The data can be protected easily, but in microservices world it is lot more difficult because you have to give it an application context, right? So that is number one. Second is, DevOps use cases, like you need to repave these applications, repave the data across, your DevOps cycle, across your test dev environments, right? And you also need data portability across the clusters. So these are certain complexities which are in play with the hybrid world. And today you have, fortunately, technologies which can support you to do all this. So that's what I would say from how we can tackle this bottleneck.
Amol, I couldn't agree more with you. It's going to be a fairly complex world that we are moving into. We were used to on-premises, then came the nearshore data centers, and now we have hyperscalers, and we don't even know where they run. All we know is that they run and then they seamlessly run, and then there's a many of them, and there's a data movement across of them, and then we need to have a data protection strategy, data management strategy, which is unified as an organization, but across all of these hyperscalers and your data centers, and in some cases your on-premises systems. And to add to complexity, we will have devices and IoTs coming in, which would embed the systems into things rather than just the software and data centers. So it's going to be a fairly complex architecture, and I completely agree with you that the data protection strategy has to be at the core of the organization rather than just choosing uh, different strategy for each of the hyperscalers separately, because then it's anyways a very complex world, will end up making a lot more complex. So you need to have a very sort of strategy that works across. I completely agree with you. Heading down to the next question to you, there have been instances of enterprise data breach, data loss, and hence efficient data security and protection become very imperative. At the same time, you don't want the security measures to prevent people from accessing the necessary data. What are some of your recommendations around security postures organizations should adopt around protection and backing of data?
Yeah, sure. I think so. Security is one of the topmost priorities for any IT leader. I'm sure Harsha agrees on this.
Absolutely.
Security is one of the top things. And just to give some quantification to this, right? And at Veeam, we recently did a research where we found out that there has been, during pandemic, there has been a growth of about 60 to 70% in cloud services. There is similar some number around 70% in SaaS consumption. But the amount of ransomware attacks has been mind-boggling. There has been 715% increase in the ransomware attacks in the last 2 years. So that's the entire context, right? I mean, that's why every IT leader needs to be paranoid about security. And we all are aware today from security perspective, there are so many handles and there are so many dyers, right? And you've got, almost a village deployed within, your IT ecosystem to protect yourself. But now, again, specifically from a data protection perspective, backup is your last line of defense, right, for your organization. And you would have typically several mechanisms. Like I said, a lot of dials around, right? You would have network data detection and response. You would have endpoint. All those access controls you would have. You would have firewalls. You would have app whitelisting, blacklisting. You would have network segmentation and a lot of other things. But what we help our customers is to create those immutable and pristine data copies, because we are the last line of defense. So if everything were to fail, and like we have seen, it fails, a lot of times, you've got a copy to recover from. So you are ensured that you have a copy from which you can recover from. Now, a lot of customers I have seen creating something called as a double play and triple play. Now, what it simply means, and it's a jargon, but what it simply means is to create extra copies, I mean, which are free from any kind of ransomware or malware or whatever, at different places. So you have one copy created inside your data center, one copy possibly could reside on a hyperscaler, a third copy, in a solution like tape. I mean, a lot of people say tape is dead, but a lot of enterprises still do believe that's the last line of defense. That's my final insurance copy when it comes to data, right? So you can do all this. Second is, to secure that data which you are backing up. Now, these pristine copies which I'm talking about, you need to make sure that they are error free. So you need to run some sort of automation framework which continually tests it and says that this is recoverable data, right? Because if you're just backing it up and you can't recover it when the time comes, it's of no use, right? It's a complete lost game. So you need to make sure that this data which we are talking about is recoverable, right? So today we provide with those frameworks where you can automatically go ahead and see whether it is error free and is recoverable. The third is to make sure, in case of an attack, you have and capability to quickly recover that data and bring back your production, right? A lot of time the data is there, but in order to actually bring back the business, it takes sometimes days or weeks, because you need to first restore it back. You need to do all the sanity checks, and then you restart your services one by one, and then your production is up. So that takes hell lot of time. So today we've got technologies which can make sure that you are up within few minutes, right? And we're doing it for a lot of our customers. And of course, fourth is very critical, right? Which is providing appropriate controls for users. So RBAC, or based on your role, you get access or privileges, right? Because this data is lying, and all the data, critical as well as non-critical, is lying, and you need to make sure that people who are accessing it actually have got a privilege to do so. So all these RBAC controls are also put in. And the other thing is from being more proactive, right? So from the proactiveness perspective, you've got a lot of other things, like, for example, detection of anomalies, right? So you've got this data lying around. You've got your production running on certain infrastructure. Now, today we've got capability to make sure that there is no anomaly in your existing infrastructure, because typically when a ransomware attack happens, there are certain things which go in your infrastructure. Your server will show high utilization. Your memory may go haywire, right? So there are certain things which we look for, to alert you proactively. The other things which you can do with this backup data is, maybe scan them, make sure that they are free from malware. Uh, you can mount this data to your, for your business intelligence, for your data mining, for your security analysis. So all these things are possible today because of the rich API ecosystem today, which we provide at Veeam, right? So
Yeah.
these are some of the things which you can do.
I think perfect answer. I think I will, multiple copies, and some of these copies can not just be leveraged for the security and the protection purposes, but also be used for mining purposes. So completely agree. I think we are on the time, but before we go, Harsha, last question to you, and a quick one. Hiring data scientists, deploying machine learning algorithms. All this is not just making data a company into an AI company. It's also a lot about cultural change. So how do you really see this change happening, this cultural shift happening from building up traditional organization to an AI-driven organization? Any light on those? And that would be my last question, and we'll submit.
Given that time is running out short, I'll try to keep it under 1 minute. And what I'll do, it's a brilliant question. I think it's a very pertinent question, particular countries like Sri Lanka and India, where on one side we have very advanced companies, on the other side we have also companies that are like, who like to be traditional. So I believe that is a very pertinent question. See, most companies, traditional, and particularly even banks, if you take a wide majority, maybe the head office and the products are digital, but the wide majority of the people who operate, they are still used to analyzing and doing stuff based on their gut feeling, or maybe a methodology they had, or some of the process they had. Getting people to start making decisions based on data is the biggest cultural shift. And And that also is not a thing that you can say, "Okay, starting today, everybody starts making decisions based on data." Initially, one would have to say, okay, we look at the data will help you to guide your decision making, and subsequently, you can move into saying, hey, going forward, uh, decisions are made strictly on data. And I think that again, a slow moving shift, and that being guided over a period of about 2 years or so, or maybe 3 years across the organization. If you're organization small, you can do it in 2, 3 months, but if it's large and you have thousands and thousands of employees, then it will take much longer. But getting everybody into the track of using data to make decisions, using data to train your AI models, I think that's a time process where you need to have a plan and then execute according to the plan, slowly move out people from the traditional way, but into more data-driven approach in taking decisions. That's my quick answer to it, since we're running short of time.
Yeah, I think we are on the time, and thanks, Harsha and Amol, for joining in this fireside. Really enjoyed talking to both of you. Very pertinent points from ROI to noisy world of hyperscalers and data scattered across the different data centers, hyperscalers, and protection of that, and how can that you use this as an opportunity to use one of those copies for mining and extraction of data. And coming back to the cultural shift, Asha, that you summed it up very beautifully, that it's not just about creating algorithms and machine learning platforms. That is also about making leadership take decisions based on data. It's a very fundamental way of looking at things. So really a great conversation, and thanks for joining in. And over to you back, Isha.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Lovely
you.
session.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.